Hi everyone, I am Saranya, Assistant Professor from SNS College of Allied Health Science, Coimbatore. Today we are going to discuss a topic on transport across cell membrane. So what is a cell membrane? Cell membrane is a structural covering of a cell which is made up of a lipid bilayer. So you can see in this image, you can see the bilayer of a lipids which is mentioned on the violet color, where it is embedded with some proteins which is mentioned as a blue color. The structure of a cell membrane composed of proteins as well as the lipids. The proteins is of different types. You can see here it is an integral membrane proteins and the peripheral membrane proteins. The integral proteins acts for the transport of proteins from one cell to another, and the peripheral proteins does not penetrate but it acts on the enzymes. The transport across a cell membrane is a crucial thing where the cell can get communicated with one another. So it depends upon the mode of transport, how it is get transported. It is either because of the active transport or an passive transport. So the active transport is further divided into a primary and secondary active transport. How this active transport is taking place is because of an energy. So you can see in this image where the ATP is converted into ADP plus PI, where the low concentration of the molecules are entering into a cell. So because of utilization of this energy, the transport occurs. And the transport across cell membrane also further depends on passive transport, where there is a continuous random movement of the molecules into a cell using a kinetic energy. So in that case, you are seeing a simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. So in simple diffusion, the diffusion takes process through the lipid layer, whereas in facilitated diffusion, it needs a special proteins for entering into a cell. So in simple diffusion, the movement of lipid soluble substance forcibly directly into the lipid layer occurs. You can see here the simple diffusion, and also you can see here a carrier protein present for the transport of the cell membrane through a plasma membrane or a cell membrane called as a plasma membrane. You need a carrier protein for transport of molecules from one area to another. You also have an aquaporin where you can transport the water. And the facilitated diffusion is also called as uniport. It requires a carrier protein mediated transport, and it is an energy dependent. It can transport down the concentration and electrical gradient, and it is also faster than compared to that of simple diffusion. For example, here it is mentioned as a GLUT, that is glucose transporter protein, where it can help to transport the glucose across the cell membrane. So there are various ion channels which is present for the movement of the ions into a cell. So the movement of ions is depend upon the gradient, chemical gradient, pore size, polarity, and the channels what is present. So there are various channels for transport across this membrane can occur. One is a leakage channel where it can constantly leakage the sodium and potassium. You can see in this image. And the transport is also mentioned as a gated channel. So it requires some gate. So where the gate can open with the help of a neurotransmitter which is called as ligand gated, and it sometimes requires some amount of an electrical charges also. That is called as voltage gated. In voltage gated, you can see here where the cell outside is extracellular is negative and intracellular is positive. So to make this happen, the sodium is entering into a cell. This is called as voltage gated. Based on the charging levels, it can helpful for the entering of a molecules. Whereas in ligand gated, you can see the ACH, acetylcholine is getting attached to the channel, where the channel gets open and the sodium is entering into a cell. So modification of the channel and the conformational change of a channel occurs through this mode. And there are various glucose transporter proteins are present. There are various forms. Either it can be present in RBC, brain, kidney, placenta, pancreas, intestine, brain, and the mucus, adipose tissue, sperm, pseudogene, and liver. Based on the location, the name has been different types. So the active transport is of two forms, whereas primary active transport and secondary active transport. The secondary active transport is further divided into asymport and antiport. So we have already seen what is primary active transport. It works with the help of ATP, energy production, and it is against a concentration gradient. So in this image you can see that 3 sodium is going out of a cell, whereas only the 2 potassium is coming inside of a cell to make the cell as more ions and cations as positive. And the function of a sodium potassium pump is to maintain a cell volume and electrogenic and to store the energy and for helpful for the passive transport also. So in form of a secondary active transport, you can see the glucose is coming inside a cell with the help of a sodium. So this form of transport is called as a co-transport, which helpful for the movement of fluid from one place to another. And another form of transport is called as symport. You can see here in symport, the two forms of different molecules are entering into a cell in the same direction. For example, the sodium or glucose are coming inside a cell through the renal tubules in the same form. Whereas in antiport, it goes in an opposite direction, where the sodium is coming inside the cell and the potassium is going out of a cell. So this form of transport, or the example here mentioned as the cations and the anions, when the positive charge is entering into a cell as well as the negative charge is going out of a cell, this mode of cross-sectional opposite transport is called as antiport. Next one is osmosis. Osmosis is a major process where the solvent and the solute is transporting from the higher concentration to lower concentration or to the lower concentration to higher concentration, where in this methodology most of the fluids has been transmitted from one place to another. So based upon the osmotic pressure, it has different formulas, like it has been mentioned as osmol, osmolarity, osmolality and the normal plasma osmolarity. Thank you for listening.